Today we have Warren Kress and Luis Zamudio from Euromonitor International. Welcome, guys.
Morning. Thank you.
Morning. So we're going to talk a little bit about smart homes and elderly, but first, let's talk about Euromonitor International and what you guys do there.
So Euromonitor conducts market research into all sorts of consumer goods. We also look at different retail spaces and digital innovations into how consumers are paying for products differently. Warren and I both look into sales of consumer electronics and appliances here in the US, and Warren looks at Canada, I look at Mexico. I focus more on portable electronics and small appliances.
I do more large appliances and like computers and home audio and video and in-car audio and video.
Okay. So. And you have research all up online, and people can get it whenever they need to?
Yeah, so we have a big syndicated database that anyone is welcome to subscribe to. We also publish strategic insights into where these industries are going. Like I said, we can talk all about consumer electronics and appliances, but Euromonitor International does much, much more than just those spaces.
Yeah, and one of the things is this aging baby boomers. I thought we'd talk about that today because we have a lot of aging baby boomers, and it's basically increasing this need for smart homes and elderly and how that connection can happen. So why is it important to talk about smart homes specifically for the elderly?
Well, you kind of just touched on it right there in that the demographic, like over age 65, is one of the fastest growing age groups in the country, and this is also mirrored worldwide. But like right now, people 65 and older make up 16% of the population in North America, and by 2030, that's going to rise to 21%.
Whoa!
And I mean that's 82 million people. The percentage of the population aged 75 and older is currently 4%. It's going to rise to 6%. I mean, so that's a 50% increase in just 12 years.
Wow.
And a lot of it isn't just due to the sheer size of the population, but it's also life expectancies are growing. By 2030, it's expected that life expectancy from birth will rise to 81 years old. Up from 79 now.
I was going to say, what was it before?
Yeah.
79, yeah.
But so a few years is a good amount of time.
Yeah.
But
so what do we see the smart homes for the consumer segment being differently for elderly?
Well, aging populations have different needs than the population at large. I mean, as people get older, they face a series of different challenges like cognitive decline, mobility declines, sensory decline. And so these smart homes offer a lot of ways to sort of mitigate a lot of those challenges.
Yeah.
And it's also important to note that as people get older, they don't necessarily want to sacrifice their lifestyle and their independence, and smart technology offers an avenue to maintain that.
Yeah, I think the independence is 100% right. I have a aging father, and he could use a lot of help, and he's proud. And he doesn't want to say he can't do things. And I think that's what these smart homes can help elderly people accomplish.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about the technology challenges. How can technology actually help with these challenges that the elderly people have?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So Warren described 3 areas that we see technology being able to have an impact in. The first was cognitive decline. And one technology that we see that can have that can be of huge help to the elderly is digital assistants. And it's already out there, but right now the technology is targeted for a lot of the little cool things that it can do. I keep my calendar on Google Home so that in the morning I can see what appointments I've got coming up. But imagine the impact that can have for someone who needs reminders to take their medication,
right,
or to pay their bills, or even just to kind of stay informed, listen to books rather than read once they're having trouble reading books. The second area that technology can have an impact in is mobility decline. So one of the most important things for people who want to remain independent is, one of the big challenges for them is that it becomes harder to do things like daily chores and maintaining a clean household. we see space for chore automation technology to kind of help those challenges. So right now we've got products like robotic vacuum cleaners that they're marketed primarily as time savers for, people like Warren and me who are working a lot and don't really want to make time to go around their home vacuuming. But this can have a much bigger impact on the life of someone who's struggling to kind of bend over or who has a bad back.
Right.
Robot vacuums are one product. We're seeing more and more of these kinds of things coming out to market. And the last category I want to mention is just sensory changes. Of course, with age, people's hearing and vision gets worse sometimes.
Yeah.
So we see an opportunity for smart home monitoring systems to kind of help them, make sure that everything is going okay at home, and even kind of keep track of their behavior so that their loved ones can see if there are significant changes that should be addressed.
Right. I was just going to go into that. Like, what are these health benefits that we can, get from this technology for the elderly? What are some of the benefits that they can get?
Yeah, sure. So things like some of the activity tracking devices that are available for the home now can help those who take care of the elderly figure out, how are their sleeping patterns changing, or if they're doing something that's out of the ordinary for them. There's also, of course, technology that can help track their medications and just their activity tracking throughout the day, and we'll go into that a little more in
another slide.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that. I'm not sure if we're jumping ahead, but do you want to talk about the products specifically?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. What products specifically are helping?
Sure. So I think that some of the products that can already make an impact that are already in the market are, I'll start with smart assistants. Like I said, Amazon's Alexa and Google Home can really have an impact because of their voice activation technology. That user experience is a lot easier for people who no longer have to pull their phones out to kind of do a lot of what they needed to use their phones for.
And it's got better.
Yeah, it's gotten better, and that's critical.
Yeah.
And I think that as that technology keeps being integrated with more kind of appliances for their homes, for for security systems in the home, it's only going to get more functional, and even the elderly are going to become more accustomed to having it in their lives. There's also technology that helps facilitate social interaction for the elderly, and I'll point out two specific examples. The first is things like the Facebook portal, which can help people who are, the elderly or anyone really who lives alone stay connected to their family, friends, and other loved ones. And what's critical there is that it makes it much easier. So just like smartphones made video calling easier for all of us, things like the Facebook portal can make it easy to just, fit a video call with your family in as you're doing cooking or as you're just kind of sitting in your home. And the way that the camera kind of allows for you to interact more easily than just holding your phone up to your face can be really helpful for the elderly.
I don't think I've used this, by the way. Have you both of you used the Facebook portal?
I have not.
Yeah, this is news to me, and I love the idea of it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea, and one thing that makes Facebook's device easy to use is that a lot of people already have Facebook, so it you don't need to struggle to find your contacts in that. One critical piece that I would add for that Facebook portal, though, is that it's integrated with Amazon's Alexa. So that really makes it more functional, and you don't have to worry about, is Facebook's AI as advanced as Alexa is already?
Right. And how about watches? Do you feel like the elderly would use the smartwatches? Are they doing that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's still, I'll jump to a graph that we have here. There it is. So wearables overall are growing pretty rapidly in North America. We see a lot more room for them to be used with the elderly. So things like tracking their activity, and more recently tracking really important health issues. For example, Apple's latest watch.
The heart thing.
Yeah, it
Yes.
can conduct electrocardiograms, which can help people identify irregular heart rhythms. So that's huge, and they were the first to bring a product to market that can do that.
That is
through a
very
watch.
huge.
Yeah.
People realize that's a whole other product you have to normally get, and it's
Definitely.
expensive, so that's a really big deal.
And I think the most valuable part is that these watches can now collect that data and provide it to your doctor. So this is a procedure that, when you do it in the doctor isn't as effective because you don't always have these issues going on. But if you can do it throughout the day and collect that data for your doctors, it becomes much more helpful.
That is a perfect segue for a question I have about this whole situation and topic, is privacy. So we're collecting all this data, we're talking about all these different products that are monitoring the elderly to help them, but is there privacy concerns around all that information it's gathering?
I mean, there are privacy concerns about like anything. Basically, when you're online, like the more connected that you are, and the sort of the more exposed you are, and that's. I mean, of some of the potential like drawbacks or challenges that this kind of technology faces, that's like it's certainly a major one. I mean, the way that gets mitigated a lot of the time is just through vigilance and diligence, and maybe not necessarily on the part of the user, just because, I mean, the elderly specifically are kind of, they have like an increased vulnerability to that kind of thing.
Yeah, or they might just have the ignorance that they don't know what the thing is about.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think other people, like family members and caregivers, also need to be kind of on guard with that. And like I said, that's just one of the challenges that this kind of technology faces. Some of the others that are like important to note are the user interfaces can be kind of intimidating.
Right. Yeah.
And so producers need to make sure that is something that's like it's easy to use.
Yeah.
And it's intuitive is probably the best way to handle that, and so that people don't get scared off by it. And there's also just like the difficulty in adoption of like new technologies. Like you have to show that it's providing a benefit.
Right.
And I mean that's been the issue for a lot of like smart products in general. That's smart appliances.
Everybody, right? That's not just the elderly; it's just everybody.
I mean that's one of the things that we've ran into a couple of times, just talking to people about like anything, about like dishwashers or washing machines or whatever. It's like, okay, this is neat, but how does this make my life better?
Right.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to large appliances, there are a lot of ways that you can see that, especially for the elderly. Like the baby boomer segment, and I think we have a slide for this too, still does an awful lot of cooking at home. Like they prepare their own meals, like far more than they go out. And as people get older and they face the issues like cognitive decline and their memory becomes impaired, I mean, there's some hazards there. Like, forgetting to turn off the stove, or forgetting to even just like preheating the oven and forgetting why. And
I've actually done that though. Like quite a few times. I'm just saying.
I mean, these things start early for some.
And there's the first burn of the day. I deserved it.
But like smart ovens and like smart stoves, like they have ways to again like mitigate that. Like it has an automatic shut off. Like if it's been on too long, if it's been preheating forever and no one's done anything with it. They have remote technology in that if you realize like 10 minutes after you left the house that your oven is still on, you can turn it off. Large like dishwashers and laundry machines have technologies like auto dosing and auto reordering to just again take away like one more thing that you have to think about.
Yep.
And so like showing the actual like use cases where it's beneficial is easier to it's almost easier to do with the elderly than it is with the population at large.
Right.
So like that showing the usefulness is is a way to also overcome some of the challenges that they have. And like the last big challenge is that people think that these things are like abnormally expensive. And they do tend to be on like the higher end of the price spectrum, but that's coming down. And a lot of these solutions are not difficult to install, and like in the case of like a smart assistant, will run you under $100.
Right, and it's educating the older people that these are not as expensive maybe as they think.
Yeah, exactly. And all you have to do is plug it in.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't require rewiring your house.
So let me follow up to my last question. What are the opportunities down the road for this category, for smart homes and the elderly?
Well, a lot of the opportunity for that, I mean, for the elderly, like the current elderly, it allows them to, like I said, like age in place, as they say, like sort of maybe get more time independently. And down the road for other people, like for subsequent generations, as they are more and more comfortable with technology, like the opportunities just increase.
Well, they've grown up with it.
Exactly.
Right, and
like
so
they're
it's
native
like,
users for a lot of this. And like as you can see, like we have generational breakdowns of the ownership of some of these things.
Oh,
And,
right.
like as Generation X and Millennials.
Millennials are all top.
Yep.
All high numbers. Yeah, it makes sense. I feel like a lot of the talks we've had revolve around this idea of it just being part of the day, right? Technology, smart homes, and then as that goes and those millennials become older, they're just like, well, of course my oven's going to turn itself off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it.
And I want to add two things that to points that Warren already made. First, he mentioned that the costs aren't necessarily as high as they may seem initially, and we're starting to see this as the technology becomes more advanced, more common from more players. For example, even with things like the Apple Watch that can perform the ECG, it's pretty high in price for a lot of people. But we're expecting to see other brands bring similar technology to the market as soon as this year. So I think that as these things become, as they're invented and then their utility shows, we're going to see more and more models of it, making it more kind of more accessible to people of older or different socioeconomic backgrounds. And I also want to highlight that one of the critical things for device manufacturers will be ensuring that they can get this technology adopted by the elderly will be, they have to figure out how to make the user interface very easy for the elderly to use. Some of the most successful examples that we've seen so far have been from companies, from electronics and appliance makers that partnered with companies and industries that work closely with the elderlies. And I'm speaking about medical insurance companies, medical care providers, and even senior citizen advocacy groups like the AARP. One of my favorite examples that I saw at CES this year was the Alco VR application, which is a virtual reality application that is part of the Oculus ecosystem, where a user can kind of put on this headset and enter like a family space and interact with their family members in a digital room, go on like a digital tour of Paris, for example, or even just watch TV together.
Yeah.
So think about how huge that is to help isolation with those elderly people who might live in a different state.
Oh, I can see that happening with my parents right now. Yeah. Like, and it's also for other people who aren't near you. And when an elderly person is very far away from someone, it is definitely very, single experience. And so to bring that in together, that's awesome. So the opportunities are only growing, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Guys, thanks so much for the talk. I want to say before these guys go, check out Euromonitor International. There's an incredible thing on US video and then versus China video. There's just incredible market research you guys are doing. So thanks again to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.